Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome if you're completely new. So in today's video, I want to film podcasts, empowering podcasts that I think you should start listening to. I personally absolutely love podcasts. I listen to at least one or two every single day. I think they are perfect to put on when you're doing other tasks around the house. For instance, if I'm doing the laundry, if I'm doing the dishes, if I'm cooking, I absolutely love listening to podcasts. If I'm going on a walk, I think they're really easy to implement because you can still carry on with your daily activities, but you can still listen to something that can either be motivational, inspirational, or actually teach you something. So in today's video, I want to share with you 5 podcasts that are my absolute favorite and I think you guys should also start listening to. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. The first and my favorite podcast of all times is actually the Manifestation Babe podcast. So it's Catherine Zinkina's podcast. I'm not sure if you guys have heard about her. She also has an Instagram account called the Manifestation Babe, and she also has a Manifestation Academy. It's called the MBA, which I actually graduated from, I guess you could say, or completed recently. It's a 6-month program and it's absolutely amazing. For me personally, it was the biggest investment I've ever made in my personal development. But yeah, this video is about podcasts, so I won't get too sidetracked. But yeah, the first podcast that I would recommend is the Manifestation Babe podcast, and I absolutely love what Catherine teaches. I absolutely love listening to her. I find her super relatable, and I think that's the most important thing in a teacher and in a coach, is to find someone that you 100% relate to and can resonate with. I absolutely love what she teaches, what she talks about. So basically her podcast is all about manifestation. She goes into so many different topics, mistakes that you can make, how to manifest, universal laws, how they impact your everyday life. I mean, she's got over 200 podcasts, and when I first discovered her, I was actually binging. I was listening to at least 2 podcasts every single day for about a month, and yeah, her podcasts for me personally are just addictive. I can't get enough of her. So that is the first podcast that I would recommend. The second podcast that I think is full of value is Mimi, and I actually mentioned Mimi in my previous video. So she is the founder of the Superhuman meditation app, which I absolutely love, and it's a huge part of my life. But before starting Superhuman, she started with her podcast, and I'm a long time listener of her podcast. I think I started listening to her in 2018 if I'm not wrong, so it's been a couple of years. And again, her podcast is all about personal development and how to be a better version of yourself, how to live as your higher self. And I think Mimi's had such an incredible journey, because I remember her recording her podcast and talking about the things that she was planning to achieve, and then to actually see her manifest that and create that for her life is really amazing. And I look at her as a source of inspiration, and I would love to be able to achieve what she has achieved one day. Mimi has had some incredible guests on her podcast, including Ed Milet, which I absolutely love as well. So yeah, she has a host of incredible guests. She also has solo podcast episodes, and like I said, her podcast is mainly about personal development and how to basically live your best life. I don't think I've ever missed a podcast from Mimi, because they're always full of value, and for me they're super impactful. So Mimi is the second podcast that I would recommend you guys listen to. The third podcast I would recommend you guys listen to is Shetty on Purpose, and his podcast is amazing. I think it's actually rated the #1 health podcast in the world, which shows that it obviously adds a lot of value to people's lives, because otherwise I don't think it would constantly be #1. His podcasts are just amazing. They're so full of value. All the guests that Jay has had on his podcast are absolutely amazing. Some of the stories that his guests have are just so inspirational, and I think it's fascinating for him to have these conversations with these people who have achieved so much in their lives and who have made it so far, and to actually listen to their stories. So I'm pretty sure most people are familiar with Jay Shetty, but if you're not, then I would 100% recommend you listen to his podcast, because they are absolutely amazing. So that's the third podcast that I would recommend. The fourth podcast that I would recommend you guys listen to is The School of Greatness by Lewis Howes. Again, Lewis is such an inspirational person. Just his story alone and the amount of growth that he's been through is just so inspirational. So The School of Greatness is also a podcast for business and personal development, and basically Lewis interviews world-renowned leaders in areas of all walks of life, so sports, fitness, health, business. There are just so many different topics, and again, his guests are incredible. Every single guest that he has on is so inspirational, and I think it's amazing to listen to these people and to hear their stories and to see kind of their progress and the growth that they've been through is so inspiring. So the fourth podcast I would recommend is The School of Greatness by Lewis Howes, and he also has a book which I haven't read, but I'm pretty sure is going to be amazing because Lewis is absolutely amazing. And the fifth podcast that I would recommend is The Diary of a CEO by Steven Bartlett. So Steven Bartlett's podcast is again super good. It's also about personal development, business, and his premise is pretty much the same. So he interviews renowned leaders in, again, different areas of life. It's just his interview style is so good because he's got a certain format that he follows through with all of his guests. So his podcast starts with interviewing his guests on the kind of childhood and upbringing that they had growing up, and then it kind of goes from there. And I find it fascinating that he actually talks about people's childhoods, because I think your childhood and upbringing can have a huge impact on who you then go on to become as a person later on in life. So yeah, his podcast is absolutely phenomenal. The guests that he interviews, again, are incredible. They're super well-known people who have achieved so much success in their life, and he kind of goes and breaks that down and kind of talks them through their experiences. And yeah, it's absolutely fascinating to listen to some of their stories. And also at the end of every single podcast, he asks his guests to ask a question so that the next person who comes on the podcast can answer that question. And yeah, I think that's super interesting as well. So yeah, those are the top 5 podcasts that I think you guys should start listening to. They've added so much value, an incredible amount of value to my personal life, and I feel like all of them teach you something. I don't think you ever listen to one of these podcasts and go away without some sort of value that you can then take on and kind of implement in your life. And I think these podcasts alone can help you become a much better person. I did say that I will have some honorable mentions at the end of other podcasts that I absolutely love and listen to, and I think you guys should also listen to. So the first one is the Dear Gabby Show. Gabby Bernstein, who's the host of the podcast, is an absolutely incredible person. I've mentioned her before on the channel. She's got some absolutely incredible books. Her podcast, which is more of a show where she asks basically guests to come on and ask her questions, is super good, and I absolutely love it too. Like I was saying earlier in the video, the Ed Milet Show again is a really good podcast that I love, that's about personal development, growth, and all things like that. Another podcast that I've recently started getting into is the Sahara Rose podcast, and that one is more about spirituality and how to find your dharma and how to find your purpose and things like that. And the last honorable mention that I have is the Tony Robbins podcast. I mean, everyone probably knows Tony Robbins. He is an icon. I absolutely love him. I love his teachings, and I think his podcast is also really good, and I think he adds a lot of value. So yeah, those are pretty much all the podcasts that I wanted to share with you. I absolutely love all the podcasts that I've mentioned. Of course, 5 wouldn't cut it because there's so many good podcasts out there, but for me personally, these top 5 have been the podcasts that have had the biggest impact on my life and have been the most influential, and these are podcasts that I pretty much listen to on a daily basis. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I hope you have found some value and you found this useful. So if you did, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel because it actually helps a lot. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in one of my future videos, and until next time, take care. Bye for now.